us, y'all. Anything goes.
Justin.
I'm wide open. Yeah, man, Dustin.
I recall that back in the death throes of 16th in Portland, the last few months I started, and first couple of months I went there, I was waiting to start summer school at OU, so I didn't get to come quite as much. And the first day I walked in there was a young man, and I remember, he's kind of good looking. He kind of struck me as a surfer type a little bit, and that was you, who was an EQ in judo. And then by the time I got settled in OU and stuff, and it wasn't hardly any time at all, and you were Shodan.
Yeah, I had all kinds of rings.
Yeah. Of course, and you were already like, what, Godan in Aikido or something? You were already way up there.
Something.
Yeah, you were way up there in Aikido.
Yeah.
And then you're Shodan, and I didn't really see you do a lot of judo. And it wasn't very long afterwards, because, I trained there that year, and I went to summer, I went to play with Tim Joe for some round. And you were just this judo, you were on your way to becoming the judo god. I mean,
fucking nuts.
Yeah. So just tell us a little bit about that transition. What that was like, what prompted that. I don't know. What's that story? I've always wanted to know.
Okay. Well, I hated judo.
Be honest, man.
It was grotesque and ugly. Aikido was cool. Judo was clunky and awful and looked like work. People sweated a lot. I was like, fuck, that's awful. So I had no interest. And Jodo seemed goofy too, because I'd been swinging sticks and hitting each other for years. So I was a hard sell for both of them. And then in 1984, I think, was Karl's first judo clinic in Windsong. And he came and taught judo, and that became like it's not just the brutal, crazy thing. And no offense to your introductions to judo that I had had prior to that, but you would, I think, say the same thing. It was a different animal. So, Karl convinced me to do judo from about 84 forward. And ranking was weird. So, Aikido ranking, there was a piece of paper, number of hours, time and grade, requirements, all this stuff that just like you could look at it and know where the fuck you were in time and space and get from here to there. And that was steady. But there was no such thing at that time in judo. And you can correct me, but it seemed kind of just like seat of our pants. You would look over and say, yeah, I think you're a green belt now. And then we'd all go, whoa, I don't know what the hell happened, but he's a green belt now. And if you asked about rank, I know that meant you didn't go forward.
Well, the few rules.
So you kind of learn, you don't even bring it up and just wait and see what happens. That was sort of the trick, right? But I never understood anything to do with the ranking structure and how I wound up at the rank I was when I was. And then when it all kind of accelerated, because what you're describing is the time frame from brown belt into like kicking up to Sandan, Yodan kind of levels. That ranking thing was, I think, driven by Karl at that point. Is that right? Did he come in and say, God damn it, we got to get this rank straight and fix all the religion? Sounds like him. So,
But you lived it. I mean,
I went kind of nuts. Yeah, Greg was coming up to go to nationals for the first time. And I was out running up and down hills. I was in grad school at UCO and had started getting in shape and running on the streets and going to the gym and lifting weights and doing every class I could possibly muster just to kind of stay neck and neck with Greg, who was getting cranked up. And at the time, judo was like we would have judo class, but then there was competitors over here doing this thing and everybody else. And I was like back and forth a bit. And it took me a while to sort of inch back out of the more competitive thing. But I tried to stay neck and neck with it for a little while. And I was never a competitor. I was never worth a shit at that, and I never jumped into it. I was about to, and I whacked my ankle on one of those long runs. I was walking around in crutches, and I was pissed at myself, and that was it. I did not go back to it. But yeah, does that
Yeah.
cover what
I
you're
just,
saying?
yeah, I just wondering what your what was your personal?
I got kind of nuts.
You just got bit by the bug.
Right.
Okay.
I just couldn't get enough of it for a while. And then we wanted to do kids class. So I went to Houston and studied at Karl's and looked at what the kids class there was doing and took a lot of notes. We got a lot of good instruction. Moose and yourself, Bob, and Karl was very generous with his time. We wrote a bunch of notes down, came back, tried to implement that. And it worked. It was beautiful, but it was also a lot of damn work.
Mm-hmm.
It was intense
Mm.
to try to make that fly twice a week. So it lasted a couple of years, as I recall. Anyway, that's the judo thing. Years later, Karl keeps promoting people and ranking things up and ranking things up. By by 2006 or 7, he had done a big thing with the USGA to try to get everybody ranked in the whole system. And I came under particular scrutiny at that time. And it was really due to Karl's own sort of testing the system. He wanted to see how much clout he had to get promotions pushed through the USGA. And so he calls me up and says, "Hey, guess what?" I said, "What?" "You're an eighth gun." I said, "What?" "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 44. He said, "Well, you're an eighth gun. You're the only second one in the world ever made it at the age of 44. He just wanted to see if he could do it. Honest to God, I had there was no way on earth. The other guy was a world fucking champion in Japan. No fucking way right? "You're an eighth gun now." "Okay, Karl, thank you very much, sir." And the rest of the judo world, whenever they've heard about that, they've been like, "What the fuck? Who's this guy? I've never heard of this guy. How could he be blah, 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 blah." Bullshido goes nuts. Right. So fair warning, yeah, you get these weird ranks or whatever, and then later it comes back to bite you in the ass and you're like standing around and say, "Well, come play and you figure out what you think I am. Let's just find out, That's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. Strip down naked, stand on the floor, and let's see who the fuck knows judo. And then go from there, right? It's not actually the things you wear around your waist at all. It's not the stuff on the wall. But anyway, yeah, man.
I'd like to give you credit on that, because I'm in another state, and I'm a big part of a different world, and Bushido comes up on a lot of One thing I would tell you about Nick, though, is when those guys, anybody that gets pulled up, it's not a good thing to be on Bushido. But
some of us did defend you.
But people get so indebted and so sunk into their own bullshit that they'll lie to the end.
Right.
And Nick owned that shit from day one and said, "I never claimed to be nothing. I never even agreed with the rank. I took it because it's disrespectful to my sensei."
I didn't want to have to fucking fight Karl.
But he never shrouded himself around his own people, walked into his own dojo and said, "I am that," and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
He came out. That thread went on for 600 pages. And
It was 3 weeks.
Yes.
It was 3 weeks of online time and energy.
And at Nick's very first post from day one, he owned it. Said, "I never claimed it. I never claimed to be something I'm not. I just do what I do." And so
You should go ask the guys that promoted me your questions, is basically what I said. I said, I didn't promote me. You need to go talk to the people that did that. Because that wasn't me.
Most people believe their own bullshit and continue to live their own lie. And you manned up very honorably about it.
Thank you. It's a challenge, and boy, they do try to bait you. If you ever have the misfortune of spending copious amounts of times on Bullshido website,
they're ruthless.
they are.
Yeah,
It's an education. It is an education, trial by fire. But yeah, you just lay it out there and see what happens. Yeah, man.
Hey, tell me about where you grew up and how you just got interested in just getting to a dojo.
Oh, wow.
What school did you go to? And
Okay. I grew up all over the Great Plains, mostly small towns in Oklahoma, some in Kansas, El Reno, Choctaw High School. And had a fucked up youth, like many of us have, and plenty of familial problems and whatnot, but made it through high school, got out. Somewhere in the high school years, like middle school into high school, I got into the Society of Creative Anachronism, the beating on each other game with the sticks and swords, and I developed an appreciation for that kind of intensity and impact, and really kind of, I mean, there's something weirdly addictive about impact, whether it's zucchini or rugby players or hockey or any of that shit. And I was definitely in that ballpark of that.
So I find that you're very articulate and you deal with people and you allow people to bring their best out of them. Did you learn something about in school, or is that just the way you were brought up?
Where did I learn that? I learned it a lot from Chuck. I learned it a lot from Karl. I learned it a lot from people that inspired me. I had some really great professors that inspired me in university. I didn't see much of that sort of inspiration in my grade school or early school and stuff. It came a bit later.
Especially when you skipped wrong.
Later, what's that?
Especially when you made a mistake skipping.
Skipping, that's right. Yeah, my first educational experience that I recall was kindergarten, where I was beaten with a stick for failure to skip. So we're all going around a little circle and we're supposed to, whatever the fuck skip is, I still am a little unclear on the concept. So I couldn't figure it out, and I was walking and watching these other kids do this activity that seemed arcane and unfamiliar to me. And they're like, go ahead and skip. And I'm like, I don't get what? How? I couldn't figure out step, hop. You know, it just was beyond me at the time in my kindergarten head. And they took me out of the line and beat my ass with a little stick, stuck me back in there. And now I'm like, ow, I'm walking. And I still don't know why the hell they hit me. But so that was educational experience number one. So negative reinforcement did not impress me. All these people say, well, they beat the hell out of me and turned me into a good guy. Didn't have that impression.
You didn't skip that day.
I didn't skip that day. I'm still a little skip resistant. Yeah.
Learn how to skip.
I still don't quite. Yeah, I did figure out skipping school a few years later, for damn sure. There's a lot more interesting things to be doing than sitting in history class. So anyway, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for your question. I think the inspiration I felt watching somebody like Chuck was that it felt like that he brought things out of me that I hadn't recognized before. And the skill sets that we learned obviously had so much reality that it sort of felt empowering. And I wanted to do that and help other people feel that same kind of empowerment. Like in the face of being bullied or being scared or being, walking around in life like I don't know what I'm doing. That, hey, there was at least one damn place where I knew what the hell I was doing. And you can too, because it's fairly simple. Now, I later kind of feel like maybe we made it simpler than it should have been. That one of the downsides, the system that Karl taught was amazing in that it very quickly self-reinforces to feel like, damn, I got it down. I know some shit. Whereas most Aikido in the world is like, that's a little hazy, a little esoteric, a little weird, don't know how to get from here to there. I mean, you sort of, but maybe, I'm not, and the sensei's got it, but we don't, kind of. And that's a real downside. Ours might swing in the direction of being a little overly simplified, which feels good, but you later go, which is where I wound up toward the end of my career, going, there's a lot of unanswered questions here. Right. Yeah.
To follow up on that, when I started, they were doing Sankata and Yonkata for promotions,
right.
And we did some seminars on that, and there were videos up through Rokukata, and then all of a sudden, as soon as those videos came out, that was the last we ever heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to get your thoughts on how that transition happened.
Why?
And what is in the Koryukatas what's that material like? I haven't even done Rokukata except for a few scattered techniques, and I keep hearing things like, oh, well, that came out of Rokukata.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, could you talk about that for a
Sure. So I think Karl's reference point with higher katas in Aikido was really interesting in that when he started gearing up to become the super dude of Aikido for the United States in Tomiki Aikido, his preparation consisted, he told me once, he had a live-in uke in his dojo, and they would do 365 days, soup to nuts, the entire system, every day. So start with the walk, and do the releases, and do the 17, and do the big 10, and do Ichikata, then do Nikata, then do Sankata, then do Jankata, then go and rotate. And they're done for the day, including holidays. Even Thanksgiving, they did it 365. That was his sort of immersion technique to try to get an edge so that he could hold himself forth as the super duper teacher. He was very skillful, had great Kazushi skills already, did not have the whole system, so he wanted to get his grip on the whole system, and that's how he did it. And there was a strong emphasis on pushing higher kata and doing kata work, particularly through those middle years in the 80s into the early 90s. That's what we're talking about, I think. What you were referencing.
Yeah.
And then he produced a bunch of films for katas. He produced a bunch of videotape. And you're right, poof, disappeared. The poof disappeared, I think, coincides with the departure of Dennis Doris and L.F. Wilkinson. So the primary people who are featured on those films as the demonstrators, as well as Craig Boyette. Craig Boyette, L.F. Wilkinson, and Dennis Doris, they all depart within a narrow band of time. And Chris Stuyvesant just walked in the door. He can tell you closer about the details of those departures than I can. I only have a little bit of a sketch of them. But I'm pretty sure that when they departed, kata departed with them. And Karl began really reverting back to a rondori-oriented.
Well, he couldn't do the kneeling at all.
There's parts of it with his fake knees that weren't going to happen, that's right. And he wasn't willing to modify with chairs and stuff like we've done subsequently. So, right. There was sort of a, hey, I can't do it. I don't have people that I used to have that can do it. And that kind of pisses me off that people are using their stuff as a reference point because I don't want to be associated with them or have them, There was always that. When Karl got rid of somebody, there was always sort of, you're gone forever and you're never spoken of again, and it's banished, anathema, excommunicated, right? That's how it felt, right? And yeah, once those dudes were gone, anything that tied him to them, he didn't like. He didn't like it a damn bit. Same with Chuck Clark. Hated to bring up Chuck Clark, and he'd just get pissed thinking about Chuck Clark. He'd think, well, shit, this guy's not even here. I haven't been here for 10 years, but you're still. That's how he was. I think that's what deformed the perspective on kata at that time.
It seems to me that the basics that we do, the Kihon kata, the release of the 17 Big Ten, that those are building up a tool set. And what do you do with the tools? Well, you do rondori.
Right.
But also you've got, it's like all of this postgraduate curriculum.
Right.
That
it's just hovering out
we're
there.
just going to get you to your bachelor's degree, but we're not worried about all the stuff you need to do for your master's or PhD.
Right.
And I had an experience the other day where I was at a Daitaru seminar, and I kept saying, they said, Aikido doesn't do this. I said, well, we do.
You haven't
I
looked
don't know
at
what
go
Aikido
kata,
you're talking about. And so I did the first two techniques of Ichikata.
Okay.
And he says, that's Daitaru.
That's Daitaru, yeah.
And it seems to me that there, especially some of the later katas, there's some subtle stuff that has to be practiced.
Absolutely. I think so too. I think there's a lot of value in it. And there was a sort of attempt simultaneous with Karl switching into Kihara system as sort of the answer to that. with Nuriyama pushing the Japanese Tomiki world into the, what do they call it, the Goshinho system.
Right.
So they developed an alternative to higher kata as well, and called it Goshinho. And I know that if Nuriyama's out there touting a brand new system with 100 zillion techniques, and Karl suddenly rolls out a new system with 100 zillion techniques, I gotta know that he's still fighting with the competitive instinct in himself, dealing with his contemporary in Japan, right? So, yeah, there had been a sense of let's salvage the most salient points for modern use out of the Koru no Kata. And in a way, yeah, the Kihara system kind of does that. But it's a long, big, weird tree of variations. And it doesn't hang together easily to be taught in a simple form. So it's a big challenge as a teacher to try to roll that out and keep it rolling and keep it moving all the time. Kata that has a set piece, man, everybody can look it up in the book. But Karl resisted. I mean, more than resisted. Karl insisted that it not be written down.
Yeah. Does that have legs? The chains and that Kihara style. Is that going to last?
I don't know. It's up to y'all. It's up to people deciding it's worth it or it's not. I thought it was an amazing piece of work. If I put it up against the only thing I know as a contemporary to it, which is the Goshinho thing that Nuriyama did, fuck, it blows it out of the water. It's awesome. It's really cool. But it is way overly convoluted. And so will some simpler forms of it keep going? I hope so. But, you know, it's easier to fall back into kata.
They're smaller chunks.
Right. It's smaller chunks. The irony, I remember it's so funny. He had just built the system and started describing it as a way to approach building randori skills using the things out of higher kata integrated in this flowing freestyle manner as a new whole kind of training module concept for building randori skill. And the month he rolled that out, I think it was somebody was making an inquiry to Chuck Clark. It was a publication. I don't remember if it was online or somewhere, but I ran into it almost the same time period, and Chuck was literally saying what I would have said 2 months before Karl did his thing, which is, well, there is no system to teach that. You just got to do it a lot. If you do lots and lots of randori, suddenly it gets cool. And if you don't do lots and lots of randori, it doesn't get cool, and you can't get there from here. But there was no systematic training until that, and I think it's valuable, but time will only tell. I mean, you know, it's up to people to want it or not. But it's there, and I wrote it down. He threatened to beat my head in with a baseball bat when I wrote that down. Called me on the phone, said, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to beat your head in with a baseball bat. And then he meant it. He was pissed. He did not want it written down. But I thought, how the hell do we transmit it? How does it go from generation to generation as long as it's just hanging around in the ether of our skull, you know? Secret videotape we can go look at periodically. But it was kind of ridiculous because there was both an instinct to get this wow cool thing out there and another instinct saying, protect it, don't you let that out, don't you, you know. And I found that was crazy as fuck. But anyway, that's all